So, everyone, great answers. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today with at Keeping Career Connections at Home Edition webinar series. My name is Michael Manzano, and I'm with Career Connection at Bow Valley College. We've been having these webinars throughout the month here with community leaders and with organizations so that we can help you in your job search. You know, we've been having lots of different topics, lots of different things, lots of great conversations. So if you've missed any of those throughout April, and I guess we're into May now, yeah, if you've missed any of those, then we've got some of the recordings up on our website at mycareerconnection.ca, but we're going to continue those this week. We've got lots of great speakers coming up, as well as two great speakers this afternoon. So I'm going to just lay some ground rules today. I'm going to turn off everyone's microphones, and sorry, give me a second here. Yeah, I'm going to turn off everyone's microphones, and I want you guys to join in. I want you guys to have fun. I don't know what your situation looks like at home, but if this is like maybe the only time that you've been able to maybe interact with other people, then let's do that. Let's interact. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy this, and let's learn some good stuff today. So we were talking about brands, and people think that branding is left for large companies like Nikes or those Amazons of the world, right? But what comes to your mind when I say something like Superman? Then it might be positive. You know, a man of steel, guy helps people. But how about if I said like Kim Kardashian? Then what is she known for? So funny story is that I did this kind of a little bit of a presentation like this at one of the classes at Bow Valley College, and then somebody raised their hand and then they said, Kim Kardashian, she's known for not knowing why she's popular. No one knows why she's popular. So I don't know if that's your brand. And then of course, if we talk about maybe one more person, if we throw in there Donald Trump, well, you know what? That kind of shows you different brands have different opinions. And it's not just meant for those Nikes and those Amazons. It's not just meant for those companies, but it's also meant for people. Now, personal brands, they can go positive or they can go negative. So the question is, what is your brand and how can you use it in your job search? So to help us understand personal branding today, we have two amazing speakers. So we've got Karyn Adams, we've got Angela Nguyen, and they're part of the talent acquisition team over at Suncor, and they're both at different stages of their brand and in their career. But both of them have seen all kinds of these personal brands, and they want to help you understand and craft your personal brand today. So, Karyn, Angela, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. How's social distancing been for you guys lately?
Karyn, go ahead. Super interesting. I am a big advocate for working from home. And funny enough, we've been trying to roll this out in the team over the past, say, 6 months, and this has brought it to a whole new level. So learning lots about how to connect with people in different ways and how to kind of pace yourself when you work from home, because it draws a different level of energy than when you're going into the office. So interesting times.
Oh yeah, interesting times indeed. So why don't we do this? Why don't we dive in? First, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? And then let's do this whole personal branding thing. Take us to school.
You bet. Thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks, guys.
I'll kick off first and share a little bit about myself. I think you maybe would have read the bio that was posted on this session. And I have been fortunate enough to have some super cool jobs in my career, mainly because opportunities just presented themselves. I think a lot of it is I like a lot of change, so I tend to meander and maneuver where there's a new opportunity, but I've been really fortunate to have a wide range of jobs. It took me a long time to admit that I was in it. I don't know why. I said, no, I'm not in HR. I'm more in leadership. I'm more in training, until finally somebody said, that is HR. Portion of my life in the military. I've done the last kind of 15 years in oil and gas. I've done lots of different volunteer opportunities and worked with lots of different organizations through volunteer opportunities. And I've come to realize that doing these types of things are probably the most favorite thing that I have to do in my career. So I love the connections with people, and I love learning and helping and just being a thought partner around how do we develop one another. For as much as anybody gets out of this, I get as much in return. So I very much consider things like this a partnership. I'm really excited to be here. This was cool how this all kind of came about very organically. So looking forward to getting into the conversation, and please don't be shy. Ask questions all the way throughout, and I'll chuck it over to Angela before we get started.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I actually discovered that I wanted to pursue a career in HR when I was supervising programming for families with children with disabilities. I think at that point in time, I realized that conflict management or like recruitment, like those are the things that really got me excited to learn more about. And I think one of the biggest challenges along the way was really figuring out how do I share with people that I have transferable skills and those soft skills that are a fit for HR, but not actually have all the technical skills that they're initially looking for. And I think that's when I realized that it's not just about who you know, but it's about who knows you. And that's why I'm super excited about this topic today, because in the last couple of years, I've been really honing in on this. So I'm going to pass it back to Karyn so she can kick us to the start line.
Okay. So did my slide advance to today's topic? Yeah, okay, cool. So wanted to chat with you about sort of three buckets, three topics, if you will. When Angela and Michael and I got together to talk about what we might find valuable, we thought it was interesting, and Michael alluded to this, that I'm in a different place in my career than Angela is in her career. But what I think is really important is that wherever you are in your career, this can apply. And you don't learn from people who just have experience. Learning from everybody in all facets is important. And so we're going to try and bring a bit of a rounded view around. I'm going to kick it off about, identifying your values and using that to help you create your personal brand, whether you're 2 years into your career, 10 years into your career, or 25 years into your career. This came quite late for me in my career. So I think it's something that I felt was important to share with you. Then I'm going to pass it over to Angela. She's going to talk about, using your personal brand to manage your digital reputation. And I must admit, I'd never even heard that term before we chatted, and I have learned a ton from Angela in this space, and I will continue to learn a ton. So I think she brings a really unique perspective around how to do this, and that I think is really mainly focused on people who are really looking for a new job. And then I'm going to bring it all home with talking about, personal branding and how do you use that in your career. So for those of you who have a job and are looking for maybe a new role or to take a different direction, we'll have some conversations about that as well. Want this to be as conversational as possible. People get more out of it when there's a bit more interaction. So Angela and I will pass it back and forth. We will stop in each section to answer questions. So feel free to come off mute if you want to. If you would prefer to put something through the chat, go for it. We're good with either. If you have a question, I guarantee everybody else is thinking it. So muster up some courage to ask it. We'd be happy to answer it. And it makes for a much richer discussion. With that, I'm going to start with values and your brand. So Michael did a wonderful introduction around when you hear the word brand, what do you think of? And many of the things that we think of are maybe companies or products, etc. We had a few in there around people as brands. And so I thought I would start off with the definition of personal brand, which is, it's a noun. And it's essentially how people recognize you by your experience, your competencies, your expertise. And what I think I'm going to talk mostly about today is your actions. And so, yes, people know you for the things that you have done in your past, but most people get measured by their actions more so than anything else, because that's how people kind of interact with one another. So your personal brand is what people think of you, how they measure you, etc. And I think for me, I have always been super impressed by people, mostly leaders, but lots of times it's been, peers or people that maybe were a direct report of mine. Those people who were really clear on what they stood for, whether it be they were committed to working out every day, and that was incredibly important for them, so they made time in their day to do that, or whether it was more around something a bit more intangible, animal rights, for example. I always gravitated and was impressed by people who in some way, subtly, most often, would let you know that that was what was important to them, mainly because of how they behaved. And in doing a lot of leadership development work with different organizations and supporting a multitude of leaders in helping themselves develop as leaders, this is an important foundation for leadership development. It is knowing who you are. It is knowing your style. It is knowing how you react. So the more you know yourself, the more you can understand how you will impact people. That isn't just for leaders. That's everybody. How people perceive you is largely a measure of how successful you will be in different jobs, getting different jobs, etc. And I always found that really challenging. I self-admittedly am so passionate about so many things. I would get really nervous about thinking about defining myself with a few different core things that were really important to me. So I struggled with really defining that. I wanted to, I never could quite get my head wrapped around it. I knew it was important. I would coach people on how important it was, and yet I still felt all over the map on it. And it wasn't until I was faced with a really, really big personal dilemma in a job that I was in. The organization that I was working for was taking a different direction, a different strategic direction. And in that strategic direction, I didn't necessarily believe I didn't support it. And mainly I didn't support how to get there because it had a pretty big effect on people. And so I really struggled with how to rally behind something. And I couldn't believe how much it showed up for me that I was at odds at working in this organization. And over the course of a series of months, it got to the point where I didn't enjoy going to work anymore. And in fact, until I actually got out of it, I didn't realize how much it was impacting me. But I was sort of stuck in this place of, this is a great organization, great reputation. I have loved being here, but I'm not sure that I'm aligned with where they're going or how they're going to do that. And I didn't know what to do. And so I was driving to work one day and I was listening to Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. I don't know if any of you have listened to Brené Brown. I love her. Millions of people love her. I've listened to many of her books. And although they've resonated with me, I never really felt compelled to do anything, or I never really felt like I could do anything with the material. It was always sort of like, that's really super interesting. I felt jazzed and I go to work and then I get working on something else. And so she talked about the process of choosing your values. And in her book, she basically said, you need to choose 3 values from this list. And you can imagine my anxiety because I thought, oh my gosh, I love every one of those. How could I ever think about getting narrowed down into just 3? Because she said, you have to pick 3, no more than 3, do 3. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. And so I popped it up on my bulletin board, which is literally right there. This list is on my bulletin board. And it took me months to go through it, because I thought, you know what, it's going to take me a while. I would circle one, I would let it sit with me. I'm one of those people that kind of makes a decision. I let it sit in my gut and go from there. And so I finally, after months, came up with three that I think that I at the time thought were my values, and now I know are my most important values. And so what that process did for me was kind of two things that I think are really foundational for me. Number one, it allowed me to get to a place where if I absolutely believed those were my values, it ultimately helped me make the decision that I couldn't stay with the organization I was with. And I entered into the process of leaving that and changing and altering my career and my life in a very big way. And the second thing that that did was really make allow me to feel a lot more fulfilled in my job, because I utilized those values to get clear on what was important to me. And that helps kind of guide my actions on how I choose to do things, on how I choose not to do things, what's important to me, etc. And people have told me that since I have done this, I'm a bit of a different person. I come off as more grounded. I tend to be more decisive. Values important to me. And I'm so surprised on a regular basis how often that shows up when I have to make a difficult decision. And so the process of doing this, which I'd always wanted to do in my life, became clearer when I did this. It wasn't easy, but man, was it worth it. It really was pivotal for me in my career. And it led me to a place of being much more satisfied, and I would argue a much better leader than I had been in the past. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions or any comments on what I've shared. I'm just looking at this way because this is where my chat box is. Okay, couple questions. Yeah, three. That's all you can pick from the list, just three. The intent is, it's not as though everything on that list or a number aren't important to you, but I think it's about getting really crystal clear on how you let that inform your actions. So if we think about branding, we think that people recognize you by how you act. And so you need to be clear, I think, on what are the most important things in how you act, and getting clear on those values helps you do that. If you had a list of 10, that doesn't provide clarity. And that's the reason why there's three. After selecting the values, what else? Well, I honestly, I think you have to step into that space, but I share how impactful this has been for me. Because once I chose those values, that really helped me get clear on why I was at odds in the current situation that I was at. So it helped me make a very big decision in my life, and one that I continue to this day feel really good about. It was the absolute right decision for me. And picking those values and getting clear on that, and then thinking about what they meant to me, helped me make that decision. And I think it's helping me be a better leader, colleague, employee, friend, because I'm living my life according to what's important to me. Oh, I love it. Somebody said they've done this exercise where you start with 10 and get down to 3. It's hard. It's really hard. Like, trust me, it took me months to do it. It may take you less. there's no set time frame, but anything, I know we've all heard this, but anything worth doing is sometimes difficult. I've never found anything about exploring yourself or learning more about yourself easy. I have always found it valuable. What was my strategy for picking 3? Well, like I told you, I put it on my cork board. You know, I went down the list and I was like, I love that one. I love that. And I would circle it. And then I let it sit for a while. And if I came back kind of week after week going, I absolutely love that one, it was fine. So, but then I got down to the third one and it was, I had actually 4. And so I kind of toggled back between, you know, this one or that one or this one or that one. And I let that happen for a while where I just, you know, I would look up and see 4 or the 2 that I was trying to make a choice on. And then I would see different things come up in my life. So I have 2 kids, and it's funny because one of my values is inclusiveness. And I found myself consistently coaching my kids about inclusive behaviors. And so after I would see it on the wall, and then I would come in from having a chat with them or helping them through something or whatever, I realized I'm like, oh, this is showing up in my daily life. This is clearly pretty important to me. And so I was able to make a connection to maybe an action that I was doing that I didn't even know or was conscious about it. And then once I named it, boy, the process of naming something and like putting it on a wall so I can see it's powerful for me. Once I can wrap my head around it and see it, I'm really visual, I'm extroverted. Yeah, it's been incredibly helpful. Were the question about were the values based on what others said? No. It was totally about what I thought was important. In fact, I don't even think I layered that on. I think I did at some point in time and thought, well, because you get to a point where you sort of say, if I believe that inclusiveness is a value to me, I really hope everybody thinks I'm really inclusive. So there comes a point in time where you want to seek feedback to say, you know, this is really important to me. If I'm not behaving in this way, gosh darn, please help me. Because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to be crystal clear myself on what my actions are. And I would like people to mirror that back and go, absolutely, you're crystal clear on that. That's important to you. And people know that about me. Is it possible for one to possess all the values? I think every one of us possesses all the values. It's not about whether or not you possess them. It's about which ones are most important to you, which ones resonate to the top for you. And if you had to choose 3 of these values that you would want to stand for or people would want to have associated with you, what would they be? Awesome questions, you guys. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to pass it over. Here's my virtual baton passing over to Angela, and she's going to take away the next section.
Awesome. Yeah, that really resonated with me in terms of picking values and just how people perceive you based on those actions. I think personally, back in 2013 was really the first time I had a mentor sit me down and be like, hey, like, what do you care about? Where do you want to kind of go? And how can we help you achieve that? And I realized that the faster that you can essentially figure out what those values are, almost the easier it is to prioritize some of the actions in your day-to-day. Like health is one of my biggest priorities. I love hamburgers. I love all that stuff. So I'll still eat it. But then I'm like, it's all about balance. I'll go to the gym and I'll work out, right? I work out to eat. So I'm actually gonna have Karyn go to the next slide for me, just because it's easier for one of us to steer instead of both of us. And then I'll kind of share a little story just about, again, why I got so excited about this topic in terms of your brand and your digital reputation. So around 2016 or so, I was at the nonprofit organization. I did my job well, but then I put my hand up for extra responsibilities in the HR side of things. And I think through that process, I was able to be like, you know what, like, I feel like HR is my jam. I'm pretty decent with people in the sense that I don't really piss them off a lot. If there's a tricky situation that comes up, I kind of err on the side of curiosity, and then that kind of helps out there. But then I was like, okay, like, every company out there who wants an HR professional on their team wants experience with it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, how do you get 5 years of experience when no one's willing to give you that 5 years of experience? And I kind of laughed at myself. I'm like, well, I kind of missed out on that boat because in my mom's womb, I didn't do anything. Like, that's my favorite saying, that like, unless if you prepped in the womb, like you're not going to be set up. And it's just a joke, by the way. And so that's when I started paying attention to LinkedIn and just kind of seeing how I can expand my network there. And I think part of the process that I used, Karyn, I'm gonna get you to flip to the next slide, please. Is people's LinkedIn's profiles. I use that as a way to figure out, okay, what can I learn from this person? What experiences do they have that when I do reach out and say, hey, are you open to a conversation or doing something like an informational interview, meaning you have the expertise in this specific area that I want to learn about, I would love to chat and ask a few questions about that. And I find that when you pay attention to the about section and you pay attention to some of their activity or their experience, you get a really good sense of what they care about. And again, what areas of expertise that they're in. And then on the flip side of things, I find it's a great way to share about you and what you care about, right? In that about section, you don't have to outline your entire work experience of saying, hey, like, you know, I'm good with this program, that program, and all that stuff, because your experience section below can do that. Versus the about section can actually tell a story about maybe some of the things that you essentially care about. And so through that process, I realized that individuals also care about that mutual connections piece, right? The more you connect with other people, the more you apply for jobs, the more the interviewer or the hiring manager will pay attention to, oh, like, hey, it looks like Angela and Karyn are connected. Like, Angela just applied for a job at my company. It looks like she potentially worked with Karyn in the past. I'm gonna pick Karyn's brain as to what her sense is about Angela. Right? And then they might dig a little bit more and just kind of see in my activity section, okay, like, what does Angela actually pay attention to? She talking about certain hot topics that might affect our company's brand or our company's reputation. Or maybe is some of the stuff that she's engaged with in it, and there's an interest section way below, maybe it aligns with our culture and our brand, and she can bring something else to our team that complements it, if anything. And so I encourage you, take a moment to really look at your LinkedIn profile and see what story does it tell? What is the perception that it gives off? And do my actions really back up some of the interests, right? And that's where that activity section comes in. If everything you're looking at is opposite to what you potentially care about, then maybe I encourage you to kind of take a look at it and then kind of think about how that affects you. And then further to that is when you are connecting with people and you're in this job search, one thing that I've noticed that I highly, highly recommend you don't do if you do this is don't send a message to a complete stranger and say, hey, take a look at my profile and tell me what you think. Or you send every single personal document under the sun and you're like, hey, can you please take a look at all this and let me know when there's a job opening. The reason why I say please don't do that is because every recruiter or hiring manager I've ever talked to, they get such a negative taste in their mouth when you do that. Because for one, you don't have that rapport. And secondly, a lot of times that it comes to mind is I'm too busy to take a look at this is the common consensus I've gotten. Versus if you take the route of, hey, like, you know what, I've taken a look at your profile. I noticed that you worked at this company, or I noticed that you were actually an expert in this. Can we chat about this? I think that actually leaves a better impression than doing what I had said earlier. And then Karyn, may I get you to flip to the next slide, please? And then leveraging your personal brand to share content. So the biggest thing about content these days is that everyone receives content. Whether it be you're on Facebook and you're going through and then suddenly you get an ad pop up and it's like, hey, like, check out this shoe, right? And you're like, oh, wait, I was looking up a shoe earlier. Like, that, what a quinky dink, right? Even though it's not actually a coincidence. But it works a similar way in LinkedIn. So anytime you have an anniversary, a status update, or you share a specific piece of article, your entire network gets notification. And what that does, it actually allows you to stay top of mind and it allows you to stay relevant. The reason being is because whenever someone's about to put together a job posting and they're constantly worried about, okay, I have this amount of positions to fill, like I only have this amount of time, the first thing that they'll think about is there anyone in my network right now that could be a potential fit? So then I can expedite the process and forward them this posting and actually have that conversation come up. And through personal experience back in 2018, when I, similar to Karyn, like left a role where I was like, you know what, I'm no longer in alignment with this company. I feel like I'm not happy going to work. I decided to leave with no backup plan. And that's kind of when I started getting feedback from the network that I had at that time was like, hey, like, you know what, love what you've been doing on LinkedIn. This position just came up on my company. Have you considered it? And I thought that was pretty cool because I didn't have to actively stay connected to that person and constantly be like, hey, do you want to grab a coffee or whatever it may be for them to think of me? Because instead, my digital presence had actually allowed me to stay top of mind in their head, right? And still, like, I believe in those coffees and everything, but considering how many people you might end up connecting with, I feel like this is a great way to kind of get yourself out there. And on top of that, I realized also early on in the HR career that if I didn't show that I knew more information beyond just recruitment and that talent acquisition side, I would forever be pegged in that hole. And this is, again, just chatting with some of the professionals that I've done coffees with. And the reason being is because it's so easy for a hiring manager or recruiter to be like, hey, you have those technical skills that we're looking for. Forget about the one that you actually apply for and the one that you're actually interested in. But we'll put you right here, right? So I feel like figuring out your values, figuring out what you're passionate about and what you're excited about and how you communicate best so that you can put that out there will allow you to shine and actually stand out. And I even strongly believe that it'll both open up internal opportunities, so within your current company, and externally within your network. So that's basically what I have to share right now. So I'm actually going to open up questions to everyone so that you can ask me anything you'd like.
You can see that, right, Angela?
Yes, I'm actually going to take a look. So it says, so the first question is, what level of personal detail, passion, values you reveal there? What if my passion is about religion? What is a topic that may not be acceptable? I think that's a great question. I think it's so common, and I think Karyn will have some insight to this too, is hot topics like religion and politics is pretty touchy still. And so what I would encourage you to do is find other ways of sharing other passions, right? Like I'm sure you might have multiple areas and potentially how you can help a company solve a problem through that, right? Because initially when someone does look at your profile, they'll be like, okay, like how can Angela have the expertise or the skills or maybe the resourcefulness to help our company go to that next round? So Karyn, do you have any additional insight on that?
Yeah, I think we're talking about being authentic and true to what is passionate or what you're passionate about. But remember, LinkedIn is a forum for the world of work. If your passion is to work in religion, then utilize that. If your passion is to work in a different stream of which maybe sharing or pushing out information about religion isn't relevant, that might not be the right way to share it. So it's about choosing, I think, how do you connect to different things through LinkedIn that you're passionate about that are also relevant to information that's shared there.
Yes. Awesome comment, Karyn. And I just took I saw another comment come in and from Faye, and she said, not to use LinkedIn when you need a job, but use it to build relationships and add value over time. 100% agree. Because when you are sharing even some of this content, Gary Vaynerchuk is one of my favorite content creators out there. And he always talks about when you're putting out content, you're not trying to sell. You're simply adding value. And I think that takes a level of pressure off of you when you are trying to share some information out there, right?
I might add on there as well that If you only share information about you when you are looking for a job, everybody does that. So it's like on a resume, everybody tailors it to that job. And so you get a bunch of resumes where everybody is proclaiming to have this skill set versus someone who you can actually see a profile where they've commented, posted, interacted about a certain topic, which also might be what you are looking for in your specific job. That presents a very different digital reputation.
Couldn't agree more, and I would like to even take one more thought into that before I pass it back to Karyn. Is just that's such a great way to stay connected, right? If you see someone in your network share information, have anniversaries or those different status updates, simply commenting on there will allow you to stay connected because they're like, oh, like Bob or Angela or whoever like actually cared or took the time to actually take a look at what I'm doing. So that's just a heads up for you guys, is it's such an organic way to stay connected that way too, right? Sorry, one more question and then I'll pass it to you, Karyn, is any tips to connect with people you haven't met? Yes, I think I'm gonna share and I'm gonna pass it to Karyn so that she can kind of share her insights. Is I do it in multiple ways, but the top 3 ways that I look at it is one, if it's a company that I'm looking at and I want to gain insight, I will search that company and then search for people that work there. Secondly, I'll look at specific titles. So for example, if I want to be a human resources administrator, I'll look that up and kind of see how did that person get there? And then lastly, you can do it randomly is what I've realized, because a lot of people on LinkedIn will kind of sway one of both ways. One is they'll only accept invitations and connect with people they've shook hands with before. Or second is they'll accept invitations from anyone because they're on there to develop their professional network, which is like essentially what LinkedIn is for. So like I said, don't overthink it too much as to how many people you connect with or where, but just remember once you initiate that conversation, that's where it's important for you to maybe take a moment to look at what you want to take away from a conversation with them. But yeah, Karyn, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I'm pretty fascinated by this because I'm not really great at LinkedIn. I'm in a different place in my career. I arguably maybe didn't feel I needed a huge LinkedIn presence because I'm more getting and working in different jobs via word of mouth, and I have a really nice network. But personally, I also struggle a little bit with this because I don't actually know. I'm kind of private. I'm not sure that I really want to post a lot, and so I really found it interesting when I was searching on LinkedIn one night. I kept seeing Angela's name come up, and so when I moved into this talent acquisition role, I knew immediately, I thought, oh, I need to get a little bit more savvy on LinkedIn because, I can't really work in this industry and profess to not know much about it. And so I was thinking, how do I get better at this? Can somebody like give me a Cole's Notes version or give me like really important hints and tips and things like that? And so I happened to be on LinkedIn one night, liking all the posts and, trying to build my digital reputation and trying to support, the various things that were important to me, including the company that I work for. And I saw Angela's name, and funny enough, that's what stood out to me. So when I was at work a week or two after, and I was thinking, hey, I need somebody to help me with this, she came to mind. Not because I had actually seen her do anything at work at this point in time. I really didn't have any kind of connection or hadn't seen anything. But it led to me thinking about her for an opportunity. And so I think, Angela, you said, what people do first of all is they say, I'm looking for this. I need this to happen. I need somebody to do this piece of work, or I need help with this. And so people tend to think, do I know anybody in my network first and foremost who might have this skill set. And that's what I did. And I think that led to her and I working on a few different things together, things that were kind of weird and wonky, and I needed somebody to help me think outside of the box. And so, I share that with you because I think it created an opportunity for her that maybe she wouldn't have had otherwise. So it really is about how do you create those opportunities, but not by forcing your way in and saying, I want this opportunity, by letting your actions speak for who you are, by cultivating your personal brand, which isn't so much about walking around with a placard that says, here's my personal brand. It's about acting in a way that's consistent with what your values are around that. And people will notice that, trust me. And I think that's the, if we go into the last section here around, your brand and your career, there's no magic bullets here, but I share my story with you around, I spent a good portion of my career. I've done pretty good in my career. I've been lucky. I've worked hard, but I've been by and large just grateful for all the things that have happened and for a lovely, successful career that I think I've had, and look forward to what, the rest of my career. But for a good portion of that, I would look at an organization that I was working in, and I thought I needed to behave in a way that I thought behave or demonstrate certain characteristics that I thought were important to advancing in that organization. So I worked in the military. He or she who speaks loudest tends to get noticed. There was a good portion of my career where I spent trying to interject into a meeting, even though I didn't really have anything to say, because I didn't want to be a wallflower. I didn't want to go unnoticed. I thought I had to get my voice in the room. I don't know that really did anything for me. I think it confused people because I would say things that weren't really relevant or weren't really important because I was really just trying to get my voice into the room. And so it wasn't until I actually stopped forcing the peg into the hole, the square peg into the round hole, that I actually found that's when the most opportunities came my way. And so the clearer you can be in your career about what you want and what is important to you, again, that leads back to your values, the more authenticity you can have around that, trust me, that speaks volumes. So versus somebody that puts their hand up and says, I want any job, anywhere, I will do anything, I'm eager, I'm eager, I'm eager. In my career and in the amount of times that I've had to make decisions or be part of decisions where we're choosing someone for a role or a promotion, the one that has clarity on who they are, what they want, and what they don't want are the ones that stand out. Being crystal clear on, here's what I want in a job, and here's what I don't want in a job. I think there is a misconception out there that when you say you don't want something, it limits your choices. And I don't agree with that. I actually think that actually elevates you into a place of being really, really crystal clear on where you do have opportunities. And in the end, who wants a job that they're not really interested in only because it was the next opportunity? You will be far more successful if you do something that you like and that you're good at. And again, this kind of comes full circle to this work that I've done in leadership development. Some really big oil and gas companies, this is how they develop their leaders all the way from frontline to the top of the house. They know how to do leadership development. They're probably some of the best organizations that do it. And all of them start with, you need to get clear on what matters to you. Why do you come to work? What do you find most engaging? And, you know, I had a friend, a mentor who left an organization, and she got some career advice before she moved on to another organization. And that advice was, pick 3 things that are important to you in a job. No matter what, no matter how, do not take a job that don't have those 3 things. I don't care if they offer you X amount of money. If they don't have them, they're not your job. Great advice, because if you can actually withhold and work for a role that is suited to you and one that you enjoy, you will make exponential progress far more than taking a role that you're not suited to and you don't enjoy. I think we all know that. You know what you're like when you're doing something you love, and you know what you're like when you don't. And guess what? So does everybody else. As much as we think this doesn't show up, this authenticity is so important in advancing your career. And when someone isn't authentic, people know it, you know it, I know it. It stops you from coming out in front and being thought of as moving forward. And that getting authentic or being authentic means you're pretty clear at a number of things below the surface. And somebody had asked a little bit earlier, like, what were, you know, 3 of my when I was thinking about values. I told you that inclusiveness was one. Authenticity is absolutely one of mine. And courage is also the other one that showed up. And so you can see how doing this stuff isn't for the faint of heart. So it's hard, but I absolutely believe in it to the core. And so for me, I use courage to make myself do some of that, because it's not easy. It's not easy to make these choices sometimes. It's not easy to turn down a position or turn down something or say you're not interested in that, but it gets you to a place of focus and clarity. And so it takes a lot of courage to step into these spaces. And anyway, that's why I think that those 3 were ones that helped me tremendously in my career. And I'm just going to pause for a minute because I wanted to do a time check. I know we're done at 3. I know we've got some questions. Michael, how are we for time? If we answer a couple of questions, are we okay?
Yeah, we're good to go. Why don't we move into the question section, unless you've got more to talk about?
I think I will only share one really, really impactful story. So a female senior leader, incredible senior leader in a major oil and gas global company. I heard her speak one time, and she was talking about work-life balance. And she basically said, you know, what is important to me is my family. And so I have my administrative assistant schedule in everything that my kids are doing during the day, whether it's they're presenting at the science fair at 10 a.m. or whether it's I got to take my daughter to volleyball after school. She said, if I am going to say that family is important to me and I need to show up for my family, then I need to be able to articulate that to everybody. Well, it just about blew me away, because I thought, you know, oh my gosh, you know, first of all, there's misconceptions of women at the top, you know, that they spend a lot of time with their family, etc. And this lady just had none of it. She was like, this is what's important to me. I make no apologies for it. I do this. And her message was, I was so surprised at the reaction I got. There was a few that were naysayers, but the majority had nothing but respect. And by the way, she said it was so much easier managing my home life and my calendar after I declared that and made that transparent. And so I think that's an example of living your values, being authentic, you know, not being afraid to communicate what's important to you, guide your actions. Okay. Questions. Let me just read them here.
So, I mean, we did start having quite an interesting conversation in the group chat, kind of about LinkedIn and about commenting. And I don't know if you can kind of comment a little bit more on that, Angela, but you did we did kind of go into commenting. Now, one of my questions that I have, if you were to comment on something, Do you think that you should be expecting a response from the person?
Absolutely not. I think that goes the same way when it comes to connecting with people through LinkedIn, extending invitations, or even as you send a message for coffee or whatever it may be. My biggest thing is I have zero expectations because nobody owes me anything, as brunt as that sounds. And then in that way, it's less stressful when you're like, how come that person didn't respond to my comment? Or how come that person didn't respond to my connection, right?
I also would add, you'd be surprised how many people will connect with you. So don't be afraid to ask. If they don't, okay, nothing lost, nothing ventured, nothing lost. And I have done a lot of work around networking, and I hate that word. It always bugged me. I always felt like really nervous when I thought about networking. The idea, I'm fairly extroverted, but the idea of walking into a room and like just making small talk with people about random stuff, just anxiety. And so how I reframed that was, I am actually pretty curious. And so it doesn't take me much to really want to learn some person or a topic. And so I reach out to people who I sometimes find intimidating on the basis of being able to connect to something that means something to me, because then it doesn't feel smarmy. It doesn't feel inauthentic. I actually am really curious, and I'm really curious to talk to them. And so utilize that angle if that helps you at all. But don't be surprised. Lots of people actually really like to reach out. I would much prefer a conversation with somebody that says, hey, I'd really love to know about the company or you know, your experience in this, versus here's my resume, take a look and let me know if you have a job.
Yeah, and I feel like probably just with the company that you're with, maybe even just like your experience and even your personal brand, you probably get lots of requests every day from lots of different people. So let's say that somebody really wants to stand out and they do want to make a connection with you. How do you filter through like all those hundreds of requests, and what goes through your mind when accepting requests or not?
Karyn, do you want to start?
I think it's mainly what I've said. I get lots where it's just a forward of a resume. No. If you want to apply to a job, apply to a job. If I get somebody that has actually taken the time to do some research about me, or can reference that they heard me speak, or we work together, or they know somebody that I know, I am much more inclined to have a conversation. So I've taken conversations from people who are like, hey, Karyn, I would really like to do X. Do you have some time to chat? Yeah, I have time to chat. And I don't respond to the forwards of the resumes.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I do respond to those. I think it's just like as an individual, I've just been used to like, hey, like you send me a message, I'll respond kind of thing. And I actually did an experiment once where I had responded to the individual and said, hey, like, you know what, are you open to some feedback as to how you approach this conversation? Again, just to kind of see how that person would accept it, because I would never be like, hey, buddy, like as a heads up, you should probably do this. And funny enough, he was like, you know what? Yeah, because it was actually hard for me to figure out how to start this conversation. I didn't know what the best way was. So I just took the approach that I did. And so it kind of made me realize from that angle, and also working with some new immigrants in one of their programs, is that a lot of people don't know the etiquette here. And that's, I think, part of why I care so much about responding, so that I can be like, hey, as a heads up, like this approach might work better, or like maybe try not to provide me with all your information because it can affect your safety and your privacy and all that stuff. So initially I did kind of get to the point where I'm like, I'm only going to accept invitations from people I know. But after that, I'm like, you know what? Like if someone's going to connect with me, I'm curious as to why they decide to connect with me. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, if anybody does have any other questions, then feel free to pop it into the chat there. But if you have connected with Angela over LinkedIn, she's got some amazing content on there about job searching, about just like her thoughts and insights throughout her career. And definitely check those kinds of things out. How about for you, Angela? I mean, we did talk about Karyn and with her values. How about yourself? I'm not sure if you've gone through that list of what was it, like 6 billion values or something, give or take. But maybe even just mention one or two that kind of popped out to you.
Um, I actually have to, my memory is like super short, but curiosity is definitely one of my values. And I just realized that it's not on there. So I guess I can keep it on my list of values unless if I missed it.
Um,
I don't know, does someone else see curiosity?
it's on there now.
Okay, awesome.
Well, at the bottom it says write your own. So
Okay,
I'm
I
sure it's
wrote my
allowed.
curiosity is definitely one of them. And yeah, I have five values. I've really struggled to narrow it down to three, but after today and Karyn chatting about what she did, I'm like, I am determined to narrow it down to three and just to kind of figure out what are the top three. So
Oh, and that's great. Definitely, I mean, take a look at these list of values for everyone out there. And if you're not too sure of what kinds of values you have, or being able to narrow it down, I mean, it is a very tough exercise. I mean, for myself, I could see a bunch that I would like to have on there. But the whole exercise is to really narrow it down as much as you can, right? And to focus on those different kinds of things, because that's sort of where you're going to find your niche. That's where you're going to find your audience and the people that you're going to attract to your brand. So it is a very worthwhile exercise. And I definitely suggest that to anybody out there. If you do want like a recording of this, we are recording it, and it'll be popped onto our website a little later on. But if there's no other questions, I mean, Karyn, Angela, thank you so much for coming in today. That was amazing. I mean, we got lots of great information from you, and really, really do appreciate your insight. And it's great that you guys both have those differing views. And that's why I liked having both of you on here, because you are in those different stages in your career. You can both talk to those things, right? And I really appreciate that you're able to come on here. So thank you so much. So everybody out there, I mean, there's lots of different things happening, out there. There's some are good things, some are bad things, but let me put this on your radar. And that is this Wednesday. We're going to have more of these great talks. We're going to have, actually, it's called Career Boost. We're going to have a series of guest speakers who are going to be coming on here, and they're going to be talking about various things in your job search. And they're going to be giving you those tips and those tricks to help you improve your search, especially during this time when all this social distancing is going on. So it's a great way to just take a day to help self-reflect and, spend it on your job search. At the same time, that same day, we're going to have an employers event. There's going to be a handful of employers that are going to be coming onto our website here, and they're going to be doing virtual online meet and greets with you guys. So they're actually looking for people. They're hiring right now, and they're looking for people just like you. So depending on what you're kind of looking for at this moment, if you are a job seeker, then definitely come out to those things. So you can get more information on our website, mycareerconnection.ca. And that again is called Career Boost. But we've been doing these webinars throughout the entire month of April. And I guess we're going into May. Happy May the 4th to all those Star Wars people out there. This is a fun day for you guys. So, happy May the 4th. But tomorrow we're still doing all of these webinars for the next week. Let me tell you a little bit about what's happening tomorrow. We do have another 2-for-1 deal. So you're getting a great deal on these webinars. So we're going to talk about job searching during a pandemic. What are those things that you should be doing to connect? And what are those things that you should not be doing? I mean, we talked a little bit about this today with Karyn and Angela, but tomorrow I'm going to be talking with Jeff Boyle, and he's the VP of Business Development and Marketing with Vintry Technologies. And he has lots of experience in recruitment as well, so he knows what he's talking about. Now, and then in the afternoon, we also have my friend Ed Britton, who's an amazing, amazing career coach, and he's with us at Career Connection. And we're going to be talking about some job searching for people who seem and feel like they're on the fringes of kind of like that main job searching group. Maybe they're too young, maybe they have no experience, or maybe they're, on the more mature side of job searching, and they've got lots of experience. Or maybe they're a newcomer to Canada and they just don't aren't sure about what to do and how to job search here in Canada. So tomorrow is job search day for all of those people who are very interested in improving their job search. But you know what? It is a Monday and we all should go spend time with our family and relax a bit. Who knows, maybe turn on some Netflix or whatever. But Karyn, Angela, thank you so much for coming out today. Really, really appreciate this. You gave lots of great insight, shared lots of great knowledge. So thank you so much. My name is Michael Manzano and I'm with Career Connection at Bow Valley College. And everyone out there, you know what? Stay safe, stay strong, because we're going to get through this together. Thanks everyone for coming. You have a great day.